All right, think about the last website you were on. Any website. Underneath all those cool graphics, the slick animations, there's this simple, hidden skeleton holding the whole thing together. And today we're going to pull back the curtain and look right at that skeleton, the fundamental language of the web, HTML.
So let's really think about this for a second. You open up your browser, right? A page loads, you see text, images, some buttons. But if you ever just stopped and asked, what is that? Like, what are you really looking at? What is your browser actually seeing to create this thing on your screen? You know, it's easy to think a web page is like a painting. Just pixels carefully placed on a screen. But here's the wild part. For most of the web's history, that's not it at all. A web page is actually a document. And that one simple idea that it's a document changes everything. It's why we even need a special language just to give those documents some structure.
Okay, so if the web is just a bunch of documents, what gives them their shape? I mean, what tells your browser, hey, this text here is a big headline, and this stuff over here, that's a list? Well, that's where we get to meet the web's hidden skeleton.
And that skeleton is HTML. It stands for HyperText Markup Language. Now, hypertext, that's the part that gives us links, the very thing that makes the web a web. But the really powerful idea, the thing we're going to focus on, is markup language. It's just a fancy way of saying we take plain old content and we mark it up with little notes for the browser.
So, how do we leave these little notes or instructions? We use something called tags. Just think of them as these super simple but really powerful building blocks. They are literally what form the structure of every single web page you've ever seen.
And really, when you boil it all down, it's just this simple two-step process. First, you start with your content, just raw, plain text. Then, you just annotate it. You wrap different parts in these tags to tell the browser what they are. That's it. That's the whole idea right there.
So what do these tags actually do? Well, a few really crucial things. First, they give text meaning. An H1 tag doesn't just say, make this text big. It tells the browser, this is the most important heading on the page. See the difference? They can also provide formatting, sure, like an I tag for italics. They can add totally new stuff, like an image tag that points the browser to a picture. And this is a big one. They create structure, because you can nest tags inside other tags, building up this whole tree-like skeleton for the page.
Okay, theory's great, but let's actually see it in action. Let's make this real. We're going to take a boring old block of text and watch how just a few tags can transform it into a real, proper web page.
So here's what we start. It's just a wall of words. To a computer, this is completely meaningless. It has zero idea what's a title, what's a sentence, what's supposed to be a list. It's just a big blob of text. And now, bam, we add the tags. Look at this. We've wrapped introduction in an H2 tag to say, hey, this is a subheading. That first sentence, it's now a paragraph, thanks to the P tag. And check out the list. Each item gets its own little LI tag, and the whole group is wrapped up in a UL tag. That tells the browser, this whole thing is one single list. We've basically handed the browser a perfect blueprint.
And the result? The browser reads that blueprint and, ta-da, it renders this, a clean, structured document. The heading is bold and stands out, the paragraph is formatted nicely, and we have a perfect bulleted list. That entire transformation happened just because of a few simple tags.
Now, this system seems pretty straightforward, right? But back in the early days of the web, a huge debate popped up. How strictly do people need to follow these rules? And maybe more importantly, what should browsers do when they don't?
I mean, what happens if the code is just wrong? Let's say a developer forgets to add the closing P tag to finish off a paragraph. What should the browser do? Should it just throw up an error message and refuse to show the page? Should it just give up? Or should it try to guess what the developer meant to do and render the page anyway?
This exact question actually led to a fork in the road. On one path, you had something called XHTML. It was super strict. It demanded perfectly written, flawless code. If you made a mistake, it would complain. On the other path was good old HTML, which took a much more flexible, forgiving approach. It would do its best to figure out messy or incomplete code. And guess what? At the end of the day, the forgiving nature of HTML totally won out. And that's a really key insight, right? The web exploded in popularity because it was user-friendly and flexible, not because it was strictly perfect. Browsers just got really, really good at guessing what we meant.
But this flexible language couldn't just stay the same forever. The web was evolving from simple documents into these huge, complex applications. So HTML had to evolve too. And that brings us to the modern era, HTML5. And HTML5 was a massive leap forward.
It gave us a whole new vocabulary to work with. We got tags like article and footer that actually describe a page's structure with real meaning. We got powerful graphics tags like canvas, which let developers literally draw with code. And finally, we got built-in tags for video and audio, making rich media a native part of the web. This was the moment HTML went from being a language for documents to being a platform for applications.
And this isn't some old history lesson. This evolution, this powerful new HTML, is the very engine running inside the browser you are using right this second. It's what powers everything from your favorite blog to the most complex web apps on the planet.
So there you have it. HTML is the skeleton that gives the entire web its structure. But the most important thing to remember is that it's not some ancient relic. It's a living, breathing language that's constantly evolving. Which really leaves us with one last big thought. If this is the skeleton we have today, what amazing things are we going to build with it tomorrow?